Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling a question that I'm sure has crossed your mind. Why do really smart people, people with sky-high IQs, sometimes do things that are, well, shockingly dumb? We're going to dig into the work of cognitive scientist Keith Stanovich to figure out what's going on in that hidden gap between intelligence and rationality.
Okay, so first, let's talk about this foundational idea that a high IQ is everything. It's this belief that's just so deeply baked into our culture. But does it really tell us the whole story?
Think about it. From the time we're kids, we're taught to put high test scores on a pedestal. The SATs, IQ tests, we see these numbers and we think, okay, that's a direct measure of how competent someone is, how well they're going to navigate the world.
But here's where that whole idea starts to crumble. According to the research we're diving into, these tests have a massive blind spot. Keith Stanovich's work shows there's this huge gap between what an IQ test can measure and what it actually takes to make good, sound judgments in the real world.
And this brings us to a paradox I'm sure we've all seen. That brilliant person, the one who aces every test, doing something that seems completely irrational. Well, there's actually a scientific term for this.
Stanovich gave it a name, Dysrationality. It's this bizarre disconnect between having a ton of raw brain power and actually applying it wisely. And this concept, right here, is the key to understanding why a high IQ is absolutely no shield against falling for scams or just making plain old bad life choices.
All right, let's put your own brain to the test with a classic little puzzle. Read the question on the screen carefully, think about it for a second, and pick your answer. Go ahead and pause if you need a moment.
So what did you get? If you chose C, cannot be determined, hey, you're in good company. That's what most people pick, even those with very high IQs. But you've just fallen into a classic cognitive trap, one set by what Stanovich calls our measerly brain.
The correct answer is actually A, yes. And here's why. You have to fully think through the situation with Anne. There are only two possibilities, right? She's either married or she's not. So scenario one. Let's say Anne is married. Well, then you have a married person, Anne, looking at an unmarried person, George. The statement is true. Okay, but what if Anne is unmarried? Then you have Jack, who we know is married, looking at Anne, an unmarried person. The statement is still true. Either way you slice it, the answer is yes. Your brain just didn't want to do that extra work.
So what in the world is going on here? Why do our brains almost always take that lazy path? Well, the answer lies in a really popular idea in psychology known as dual process theory.
The idea is that our minds are basically running two different programs all the time. Type 1 is your brain's autopilot. It's fast, intuitive, effortless. It's your gut reaction. Then you have Type 2. That's your conscious, analytical mind. It's slow, it's careful, and it takes a lot of mental energy to use. That puzzle we just did, it's designed to trick us by making the lazy Type 1 path seem like the only option.
And that really gets to the core of it. As Stanovich puts it, we're all cognitive misers. Our brains are fundamentally lazy. They're wired to conserve energy whenever possible. So overriding that fast, gut reaction Type 1 thinking requires a deliberate choice. It takes real effort from our Type 2 system.
So here's a really useful way to think about it. Your brain is like a computer. An IQ test is great at measuring the speed of your processor, your hardware. Stanovich calls this the algorithmic mind. But what it tells you nothing about is your operating system, the part he calls the reflective mind. And that's the part that decides when to run a demanding program and override those lazy default settings.
But wait, the analogy doesn't stop there. Because, look, even if you have the world's fastest computer with the best operating system, it's not very useful without the right applications, is it? You need the right mental software.
And this critical component is what Stanovich calls mindware. This is basically your entire library of mental tools you've picked up through life and learning. Things like knowing how probability works, using logical reasoning, or applying the scientific method. This is the software you run on your mental hardware.
Irrational thinking often boils down to two kinds of software problems. First, there's a mindware gap, where you're simply missing a crucial thinking tool. But what's even more dangerous is contaminated mindware. This is like installing a virus on your computer, believing in actively harmful ideas that corrupt your whole decision-making process, and it doesn't matter one bit how high your IQ is.
So when we put all these pieces together, we get a much richer and, frankly, a much more accurate picture of what it really means to be smart.
Okay, so the big takeaway here is that we have to update our definition. Intelligence isn't just one number. It's really a three-part system. You've got your raw processing power, your ability to step back and override your lazy instincts, and then the quality of the mental tools, the mindware, that you've actually got installed. A failure in any one of those areas can lead to irrational behavior.
And that leaves us with a final, really powerful question. Your IQ, the horsepower of your brain, is pretty much fixed. But the real question is about the parts you can actually control. Are you aware of your own mental shortcuts? And are you actively seeking out and installing the best possible mindware to help you navigate this complex world? Because that, as it turns out, is the real key to wisdom.